The first map came out of a dream. A 16-year-old in Lenox, Ohio, woke at 3:11 a.m., walked to her desk and drew a straight line from a water tower to a stand of pines, then marked an X where a cornfield met a drainage ditch. Her father found the paper in the morning and photographed it next to the alarm clock. At noon, sheriff's deputies followed the diagram to a culvert off County Road 18. They found a backpack wrapped in contractor plastic and bound with orange twine. Inside were a phone, a wallet, and a name tied to a 2016 missing persons case 2 counties away. 2 weeks later, the same teenager filled a notebook with a description of a split-level house with a red aluminum awning and a cracked flagstone path. She wrote a list of small details: a broken porch light on the left, a ceramic swan planter, 3 burned rings on the kitchen laminate, and a key hidden under a fake stone with 2 chips on the edge. Investigators compared the list to a 2014 arson that killed 2 people on Elder Street. The porch light had been left broken for months. The planter and the stone were in the old scene photos. The key's hiding place matched the original report. No one had published that detail. On a third night, she woke again, moved with the same focus, and wrote 4 words: Ring Road, mile marker 25. State police checked right-of-way logs along I-480. Maintenance crews had noted a disturbed patch behind the guardrail during a storm cleanup years earlier. A cadaver dog alerted. Soil gave way to a shallow grave. DNA matched a 2011 disappearance. The teenager was Ava Ridley. The man who carried the notebook into the sheriff's office and asked to talk to a detective was her father, Mark Ridley. He said his daughter was having disturbing dreams. He said they might mean something. They did. Lenox sits between soybean fields and a freeway spur in northeast Ohio. It is a town of ranch houses, small churches, and a municipal building with a lobby display of local football trophies. Mark Ridley, 47, ran a small HVAC outfit, drove a white service truck, and kept a tidy workshop in his detached garage. His customer base was steady, his reviews polite, and his invoices showed long hours in shoulder seasons. Ava Ridley attended Lenox High, ran cross-country, and kept a quiet profile. Teachers documented punctual work and a habit of carrying a small ledger. Neighbors saw father and daughter on evening walks with a black lab named Ranger. No police calls came from the address on Willow Trace Drive. No open complaints. The most visible routine was Mark's habit of leaving before dawn for jobs in outlying townships and returning after dark with parts receipts in his shirt pocket. The 3 unsolved cases that intersected Ava's notebook were regional. In 2011, Mallory Keene vanished after leaving a night shift in Elyria. In 2014, Thomas and Elaine Harrow died in a house fire later ruled arson in Riverton. In 2016, Jenna Cruz disappeared from a convenience store off State Route 24. None of these names appeared in Ava's phone history. None of their case details were taught in school. Yet her drawings and lists matched facts the public did not know. The first discovery set a sequence. Deputies recovered the contractor-wrapped backpack from the culvert off County Road 18. The contents were water-damaged but intact. A wallet with Jenna Cruz's driver's license, a prepaid phone with a dead battery, and a pack of gum with an expiration date that aligned with the 2016 timeline. The bag's twine was a distinctive orange polyline used by commercial landscapers. A knot at one end included a melted tip fused against plastic, a field trick for keeping a cut line from fraying. Forensics processed the backpack. The plastic was builder-grade sheeting common at home centers. A single dark dog hair was trapped between folds. Soil on the outer layer contained glassy slag from a roadside salt mix used by the county. The inner layer held a few grains of fine grit consistent with a workshop floor. None of this pointed to a person. It pointed to a place and a routine: wrapping, tying, sealing, transporting, and dumping without leaving the main road. The second discovery was more precise. Fire investigators revisited the 2014 Harrow arson with Ava's notebook in hand. They checked the porch light base. The broken shard in the fixture was still in the evidence bin. They photographed the ceramic swan planter, tagged for return years before. They found the fake rock key box with 2 chips on the leading edge in the original scene photos, placed in the same corner Ava had described. The kitchen laminate had 3 dark heat marks near the stove line. Those marks had not been released to media. The match was exact. The third discovery was decisive. State police searched behind the guardrail on I-480 near mile marker 25, working south from a maintenance log notation of soft soil after a storm. A dog alerted behind the stacked rail. Crews cut a section, removed fill, and unearthed plastic sheeting similar to the culvert find. Inside were bones, clothing remnants, and a class ring engraved MK with the year matching Mallory Keene's graduation. DNA confirmed the identity. The grave was shallow, shielded by the guardrail, and within a merge zone where stopping at night would draw little notice from motorists focused on a lane shift. As the recoveries piled up, Mark Ridley remained in the room. He brought Ava's notebooks when asked. He pointed to dates, to drawings, to the night she walked a path in the yard and left heel marks in dew that stopped by the shed. He authorized a search of the detached garage. He said he wanted whatever this was to stop. Deputies worked the garage first. The floor was clean. The workbench was organized. A pegboard held tubing benders, flaring tools, and a coil of orange poly twine secured with a melted tip. A shelf carried a roll of builder-grade plastic sheeting, open, edges cut clean. Under a drop cloth, investigators found a cement mixing tub with fine dust and small chips. In a drawer, a utility knife held a blade with a trace of dull brown on the bevel. Luminol developed a faint smear on the tub lip, consistent with a gloved hand moving an object. In a corner cabinet, a small box labeled Keys held a collection of blank house keys and a ring of cut keys stamped with hardware store tags. One tag read Elder Saint, another read Maple Seaton. Ava had never lived on either street. Those tags matched old addresses from the Harrow case and a burglary report tied to Jenna Cruz's neighborhood. The dog hair from the culvert bag matched Ranger, the family lab. Mark said keys were part of his HVAC work. Customers handed them over for service calls. Some do, most do not. The presence of a tag reading Elder Saint and the unreturned kitchen heat marks tightened the circle. Deputies broadened the search to vehicles. Mark's service truck showed wear in predictable places and one odd place. The rear bumper cover had been removed and reinstalled. Behind it, dust was wiped from an area large enough to tape and support a parcel. The underside of the bed carried a small patch of plastic fused by heat near the exhaust path. The immediate aftermath moved quickly. The sheriff's office impounded the truck, took buckle swabs, and logged Mark's power tools. A judge signed a warrant for location data tied to Mark's phones over 10 years. Another warrant went after anonymized location bundles from navigation apps at the dates and places in question. A third covered retail purchases at home centers within a radius of Lenox for orange poly twine, contractor plastic, and utility knives matched to a UPC visible on the plastic roll found in the garage. That night, Ava stayed with an aunt. Deputies photographed the notebooks in sequence, recorded timestamps on phone images, and built a grid of drawings and dates. A pattern emerged in the margins. Many entries followed weekends when Mark drove call-outs after dinner or left before dawn. Few entries aligned with job invoices. Fewer aligned with school nights when Ava slept straight through. With the grave confirmed on I-480, the arson details validated on Elder Street, and a missing person's backpack recovered by a dream map, the question changed. The dreams were not coincidences. They were either prior knowledge placed in Ava's head by news she had somehow absorbed, or they were memories of places she had been without naming them. The second possibility carried weight. The next day, the case moved to major crimes. Lieutenant Jenna Marsh, Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, took lead with a joint team. The approach was methodical. Establish presence, means and intent using physical evidence, digital trails, and a timeline that could survive cross-examination. Analysts pulled 10 years of Mark Ridley's phone location records. The data placed his device near I-480 mile marker 25 on a rainy night in September 2011, with a dwell time of 4 minutes inside a lane closure window. It placed him on Elder Street on a Sunday evening in April 2014, with a stop of 26 minutes that ended minutes before a neighbor reported smoke. It placed him near the Route 24 convenience store the night Jenna Cruz disappeared, with a short dwell and a subsequent loop past a culvert on County Road 18 not far from where the backpack was found. Retail records came next. A query across big box hardware stores in the county pulled 17 purchases of orange poly twine, 6 mil contractor sheeting, and utility blades on Mark's contractor account over 8 years. In 2 instances, point-of-sale cameras showed Mark at the register. In another, a clerk wrote a return note on a receipt for extra plastic, initialed Mr. A home center manager remembered Mark asking if the store carried Kita-like sets for rental properties. The store did, and the SKU appeared on his account. A forensic accountant traced cash withdrawals timed around the 3 crimes. Mark withdrew small amounts the day before the 2011 guardrail area visit, the day of the 2014 arson, and the day Jenna Cruz vanished. Meanwhile, his HVAC income rose and fell with seasons, but those withdrawals clustered away from payroll weeks. They funded fuel and parts with no invoices attached. Vehicle forensics addressed the service truck. Under the bed liner, a pattern of scratches ran parallel to the tailgate, consistent with sliding heavy plastic-wrapped items in and out. Under the passenger seat, a torn corner of a convenience store receipt with a date matching Jenna Cruz's shift lay wedged against soundproofing. The thermal pattern on the rear bumper underside showed heat peaking near a section where melted plastic residue could bond. A lab lifted a faint impression of Jenna's driver's license hologram from the bumper, plastic where it had briefly adhered in transit before being wrapped again. The Harrow fire investigation had long ago established use of an accelerant. Samples from old debris were retested with newer techniques and matched a petroleum distillate commonly sold as charcoal lighter fluid. Mark's garage held 2 old cans. One was half full and oxidized. Trace analysis matched the can's residue to a profile consistent with the debris. No unique signature exists for commodity fluids, but additive ratios aligned with batches sold under a budget brand at a store where Mark's loyalty account showed purchases. Digital evidence corroborated the fieldwork. Ava's devices showed no internet searches for the victims, the addresses, or the details that matched her notes. Her notebooks contained drawings of routes and objects that were not easily scraped from news. The 3 burned rings on the Harrow kitchen laminate, the chip pattern on the fake rock key, the view line from a guardrail notch to a merge sign. Her sleep-tracking app recorded wakeful intervals on nights that coincided, with Mark's call-outs and the next-day drawings. Neighbor's doorbell camera 2 houses down from the Ridleys had a partial view of Willow Trace Drive. On 3 separate dates, late at night or before dawn, it recorded the Ridley truck leaving without headlights for the first 50 feet, then lights on, then a turn toward the highway. The timestamp on one clip lined up with the 2016 convenience store footage that showed Jenna Cruz stepping outside to take a delivery that never arrived. Witness statements filled in edges. A convenience store clerk recalled a repairman buying coffee and a lottery ticket around the time Jenna stepped outside. The clerk could not identify the man years later, but store video showed a figure with a service jacket and a distinct HVAC company logo patch. The patch matched Mark's old uniforms. An Illyria co-worker of Mallory Keene remembered a white service truck idling under an overpass the week she vanished. Plate numbers were not captured, but a dash cam from a different car that night, archived out of habit by a local hobbyist, caught a partial sequence that matched the block of numbers on Mark's plate. In the Ridley garage, a key impression kit sat next to blank keys. A small vise with padded jaws and a set of files showed fresh metal dust. A notebook in Mark's handwriting labeled Cuts listed 5 addresses and numbers. 2 of the addresses matched the Harrow home and the Cruz residence. The Cruz family had reported missing mail months before the disappearance. Keys can be cut from a mail key with patience. The fake rock key detail from the Harrow porch explained entry without a broken lock. Investigators considered other suspects. The Cruz case had a known stalker. His alibi checked. The Harrow case had a family dispute. The other party lived out of state and had an airline record. The Keene case included a co-worker with a criminal record. His phone was across town that night. None of them were present at all 3 scenes. Mark's phone, truck, purchases, tools, and the items in his garage placed him near each one. Ava's role was defined clearly in reports. She slept, woke, wrote, and returned to bed. She did not drive. She did not handle tools. She did not hide keys. Her notes gave locations and object lists that matched facts not released. Her father delivered those notes. He stayed in the room for interviews and tried to shape the narrative around dream coincidence until the physical evidence resisted. By the end of the 4th week, warrants covered a storage unit in Mark's name. Inside, a bin labeled camp gear held a tarp, cord, and a small tackle box. Under the tray lay 3 driver's licenses with the photos scraped off, a gas station gift card with a balance from 2016, and a key ring with 2 stamped tags, Elder Saint and Maple Setit. The unit's log recorded access codes typed in at 4:52 a.m. on 2 dates tied to Ava's longest wake. Periods. The investigation led to the main character by elimination and by accumulation. No other subject intersected all 3 cases with presence, access, tools, and a workshop that matched the materials found. No one else lived with the one person who had drawn choreographic maps of caches and scene details. The notebooks were not speculation. They were after-images. The first twist reframed the dreams. A forensic sleep specialist reviewed Ava's app data and patterns. The intervals of night activity aligned with periods of sedation on prior medical encounters. Pharmacy logs showed no relevant prescriptions, but Ava's medical chart included 2 urgent care visits years earlier for unexplained morning nausea after weekends. Detectives searched the garage refrigerator and found an unmarked bottle among sports drinks. Lab testing identified doxylamine succinate in a concentration higher than over-the-counter solutions. It is a sedating antihistamine. A legal product becomes a tool if administered without consent. Ava's blood tests weeks later were clean, but the timeline suggested use in the past to deepen sleep. The second twist connected prior night drives. License plate readers placed Mark's truck exiting Willow Trace at night on routes toward Elyria, Riverton, and County Road 18 multiple times over 8 years. Toll records were absent where no tolls existed, but fuel card logs on Mark's contractor account showed late-night pumps at stations spaced along those corridors. Receipts bore handwritten job notes, no heat call, after hours, prep. When detectives contacted the supposed customers, the jobs did not exist. The notes were covers to justify mileage and fuel. The third twist sat on a toddler, car seat in a photo from 2011. Ava's aunt produced a family picture taken in front of the Ridley home. The summer Mallory Keene disappeared. Mark had installed Ava's car seat in the service truck for an ice cream run. The brand and model matched a scuff pattern on the truck's rear seat. That meant Ava had likely been in the vehicle on nights when Mark drove. The guardrail grave sat in a merge where a child might remember seeing a flashing arrow sign or hearing a horn. Ava's notes included the arrow. The fourth twist linked mail theft. A postal inspector flagged a cluster box break-in report near the crew's home months before the disappearance. A neighbor's floodlight camera showed a white service truck idling while a person reached into boxes with a pry tool. A freeze frame and digital enhancement showed an HVAC logo and a magnet strip on the door with a phone number including 22739, the last 4 digits of Mark's business line. The cluster box scene created a likely path to the fake rock key detail at the Harrow house via mail or observation. The fifth twist was buried in Mark's HVAC invoices. Several invoices to repeat customers included after-hours lockbox codes written in the same block print as the key-cut notebook. Customers confirmed they had given Mark codes for entry on emergency calls. One customer on Maple Seat had never met him but left a key under a planter for years. It was returned by mail in an envelope with no return address after she changed locks. She lived 3 blocks from the crew's home. The sixth twist involved a fourth case. After press about the first 3 connections, a retired dispatcher in Medina called in a tip about a 2012 roadside fire that burned a mattress and a bundle of clothing under a bridge. No body was found. The scene collected ash, charcloth, and melted poly. The orange twine detail had been photographed and boxed. Analysts ran a spectrographic comparison of the twine polymer and dye to spools from Mark's garage. The match was strong. Inside the ash evidence bag, an intact zip tie preserved in a fold bore a ridge that matched ties found in the Ridley workshop. The 2012 scene had been an abandoned arson dump. When it happened, there was no case to attach it to. Now it looked like a practice burn or a disposal attempt that failed. The 7th twist exposed Mark's past out-of-state work. 5 years earlier, he registered an LLC in Pennsylvania, worked a brief contract near Erie, and canceled the business within 3 months. During that period, a young woman went missing, later found alive in a different state after escaping a captor in a storage facility. Her statement included a detail about a chemical smell like glue and gas and a blue tarp with paint overspray. Mark's storage unit held a blue tarp with overspray matching a paint batch from his garage wall. No direct link was made to that kidnapping, but the pattern of materials and movement mirrored his Ohio routines. The 8th twist clarified why Ava knew what she knew. Detectives mapped Ava's night movements recorded by her smartwatch. On nights with wake notes, her heart rate spiked and then stabilized. A theory formed. Mark sedated his daughter lightly on nights he planned to leave, moved her to the truck in pajamas to create an alibi if stopped, drove to locations where he had already prepped access, and returned before dawn. A child sees a guardrail, a merge sign, a porch swan, a fake stone. She hears a dog whine in the truck bed, a tarp rustle, a fluid slosh. She forgets under the fog of sleep. Years later, under normal sleep cycles, the fragments surface as dreams. The notes were not paranormal. They were sensory residue. The 9th twist unsealed Mark's financial motive. Insurance policies on the Harrows paid to a distant cousin due to probate delays. No money flowed to Mark. But his HVAC business spiked after 2014, with a rash of service calls on Elder Street and adjacent blocks. He was the contractor who arrived early, who helped neighbors, who replaced smoke-damaged parts at cost. The arson created work, and work created access. In 2016, after Jenna vanished, a vacant rental owned by her landlord required HVAC rehab. Mark billed the job. He never profited from the deaths as a beneficiary. He gained keys, codes, and reasons to be in neighborhoods at odd hours. The 10th twist put Ava's safety at the center. After the 3rd recovery, Mark asked to take his daughter home. The sheriff declined. A protective order followed. In Mark's truck console, deputies found a recent purchase, a burner phone and a roll of black duct tape. In his desk drawer, they found a typed letter addressed to whom it may concern, describing his daughter's visions and framing himself as a parent under siege. The letter read like an attempt to create a record for later, not a plea for help. The timing, after the grave was found, suggested anticipation of arrest. The county grand jury indicted Mark Ridley on multiple counts: aggravated murder for Mallory Keene, felony murder for Jenna Cruz, aggravated arson, and 2 counts of murder for Thomas and Elaine Harrow, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, burglary, receiving stolen property, possessing criminal tools, and child endangerment for transporting and sedating his daughter during night offenses. The state also charged him with engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity, using the HVAC business as the enterprise structure. Pre-trial litigation focused on admissibility. The defense moved to suppress the phone location data, citing a lack of particularity. The court found sufficient specificity tied to the dates and scenes established by independent evidence. The defense challenged the relevance of Ava's notebooks as hearsay. The court admitted them under a past recollection recorded framework, with careful instructions limiting their use to show investigative leads and corroborative value rather than as direct proof of locations. The defense fought the introduction of the orange twine polymer match and the lighter fluid additive profile. The court allowed them with Daubert hearings establishing methodology and error rates. Prosecutors presented a clear sequence. They led with the I-480 grave and DNA identification of Mallory Keene. They showed the guardrail cut, the merge sign view line, and the maintenance log that noted soft soil. They introduced phone data placing Mark's device in the sector during a window of low traffic and a lane closure. A traffic engineer explained how a vehicle could stop briefly without drawing attention in that zone at night. A canine handler described the alert that led to the grave. They moved to the Harrow arson. Fire examiners walked jurors through ignition points, accelerant residues, and flow patterns. The 3 burned rings on the laminate and the chipped fake rock appeared side by side with Ava's notes. A crime lab chemist compared lighter fluid from Mark's garage to residues in the old debris. A locksmith demonstrated how a key cut from a lockbox code or a borrowed spare could be used and returned without detection. The Cruz case followed. Store surveillance showed Jenna stepping outside to accept a delivery. Metadata on the convenience store receipt fragment from Mark's truck placed him at that store. A forensic video analyst synchronized the gas station clip of a service jacket logo with a timeline that included the Ridley truck's departure from Willow Trace without headlights at the beginning of the drive. The backpack recovered from the culvert, wrapped in plastic and tied with orange twine with a melted tip, went to the jury with gloves and instructions. The dog hair match to Ranger connected the family home to the dump site. Experts explained the burner phone, the storage unit contents, the key-cut notebook, and the polymer ties between the workshop and the crime scenes. A pediatric sleep specialist explained how sensory fragments during drug-deepened sleep can later surface as vivid images without context. Stopping short of psychology and staying within physiology and memory encoding. The state did not allege supernatural knowledge. It alleged proximity. The defense argued that coincidence and contamination drove the case, that Ava's notebooks reflected media seepage, that phone location data is imprecise, that orange twine is common, that the lighter fluid profile is not a fingerprint, that a convenience store receipt fragment proves only a purchase, that keys and codes are part of HVAC work, that the guardrail grave was a crime of an unknown person, that the Cedar Street cluster box video shows only a white truck, that the toddler car seat photo proves nothing about night drives years later. Cross-examination pressed the state's experts on error rates, on overlapping profile distributions, on the lack of direct DNA linking Mark to bodies. Redirect laid out the pattern, presence at each scene, tools in the workshop, materials in the garage, access to keys and codes, a concealed bumper carry with plastic residue, handwritten notes about addresses and cuts, and a child who recorded facts never released. The jury deliberated for 2 days. They asked to see the contractor plastic, the orange twine, the utility knife, the key impression kit, and the guardrail map side by side with Ava's drawings. They requested readbacks of the crash engineer, the fire examiner, and the sleep specialist. They did not ask to rewatch the neighbor's doorbell video more than once. The weight of the material evidence carried more than moving images. The verdict was guilty on all homicide counts. Guilty on aggravated arson, guilty on kidnapping, guilty on tampering, guilty on burglary, guilty on possessing criminal tools, and guilty on child endangerment. The court imposed life without parole on the aggravated murder counts and consecutive terms for the other felonies. A separate hearing terminated Mark Ridley's parental rights. The state opened a victim compensation fund for families in the 3 cases. The county quietly retired a handful of cold files that now had explanations, if not formal charges.